Well, the top race is the 30-lap Gunnar Nilsson Memorial Trophy race for those spectacular BMW M1 Procars. We'll be bringing you that race live in just a few minutes. But let's meet some of the personalities here. And with me already, Jackie Stewart and George Harrison. First of all, Jackie, I'm sure if Gunnar had been alive, he would have been so proud today.
Oh, I think very proud indeed to have a lineup that have come to Donington for this great event. I mean, it's a great privilege to any driver, a great tribute to any driver to have Fangio come. I mean, who's a symbol to everybody in motor racing, and to have James and Mario and John Watson, Alan Jones, to have all of these drivers, and then to have George come, who's become so keen in Grand Prix motor racing, and now is taking up driving. I think I'm going to threaten that I'm going to take up playing a guitar if he carries on like this.
How did you get on, George, in your drive? Your drive has just happened.
Yeah, it was really nice, actually. I was a bit dubious about it being surrounded by all these masters. And yesterday in the rain, I had just to get familiar with the car, and I spun out a couple of times. So I was very, very nervous. And especially as John Watson was saying, well, you know, they may be supposed to go in formation, but no racing driver does that. They all will race. And as soon as he dropped the flag, it was like the Indianapolis 500. Well, from where I was sitting, it was great. You know, it was very nice. The car was a bit old, but then again, so am I.
It's one of your great loves, motor racing.
Yeah, I liked it since I was a kid, and it's a bit more interesting for me now because, you know, with having friends like Jackie, I understand that much more, and I'm a sort of privileged hangers-on club member, so I managed to get to know all the, you know, the backroom sort of stuff that goes on. But you know, I have to get out of it a bit now because I'm getting to know too much, you know, the politics.
The trouble is now, you see, now that he's driving, he really is the master of going faster. So George wrote a great song about motor racing called Faster. This is the commercial for George Harrison. No, it's great, and you know, a lot of people have turned up. The weather was a bit dodgy this morning, but now it's ideal. In fact, ideal racing conditions. And you know, for the M1s, that's going to be a great race. And then, of course, there's going to be a challenge of the Formula One drivers to try and break the lap record here around Donington, and a lot of good racing.
What was Gunnar Nilsson like?
Gunnar was an amazing young man when you think he was only 28 years of age when they found out that he had cancer. He had an absolute specimen of health, physically tremendously in good shape. I mean, just a great physical specimen. And to see within 11 months his life being taken away from him, almost being eroded, it was a very sad thing. But the great thing, I think, was that the tremendous courage he had and the way that he attacked it. And the fact is that Gunnar Nilsson is a Swedish driver. And here he is raising money for equipment that is going to be put into Britain. Not to Sweden, not to Stockholm, not to any of his cities, but to ours, to London. And I think this is just one of the greatest things that I can think of, that he obviously respected so much the hospital and the staff that had looked after him so well and had tried so hard to save his life, that he wanted to do something for that hospital and for the people who had helped him so much. So it was a great, courageous effort, and you know, my hat gets doffed to Gunnar, and I'm sure everybody who's present today feel exactly the same way.
George, did you know Gunnar Nilsson?
Yeah, I knew him for about 18 months before he died. I met him at a lot of races and spoke with him. I met him at some other things as well, apart from races, and I spoke to him quite a lot on the phone. He was a very sweet person, you know. I mean, he was very easy to know. Very first time I met him, it was like as if I'd known him for years, you know, very open, warm person. And it was very sad indeed, you know. But then again, at least he did something, you know. I mean, it was fantastic what he did in spite of all that misery he must have been in. It was wonderful what he did, and I think that's why I'm here, really. I mean, I wouldn't normally watch this sort of race. I mean, unless it was on with a Formula One. But I came, you know, because of Gunnar. That's really the main reason.
Well, let's talk about this race for a moment. Jackie, let's get your expert opinion. I mean, you would expect to see all these great names that we've mentioned who are currently in action. You would think that they were in Grand Prix cars, but the viewer's going to get a bit of a shock here.
Well, there's a new series this year. It's called Procar Series, and it's very good because the top Grand Prix drivers are going to have the privilege of racing against the more expert GT drivers or Gran Turismo drivers or sports car drivers. Now, some of these chaps behind the Grand Prix drivers, because the privilege of being a Grand Prix driver is that they're all at the front end of the grid. There's 5 of them up there at the front end, and then behind that, some of the most competitive sports car and GT drivers in the world. Troy Hazelman, tremendously fast. David Hobbs, very quick, from local man here from the Midlands. A lot of them, Giacomelli from Italy. These drivers, and Hans Stuck, by the way, from Germany, who is a Grand Prix driver, but who's regularly driving this series, he's very quick. I think you can see a lot of fireworks. You're going to see a lot of passing, which sometimes Grand Prix racing doesn't afford. And I think you're going to see that. So hopefully you're going to see one of the best races this season, because it's the first time these pro cars have appeared on any British track. And I think the privileged public that have attended here today are going to enjoy it, and your privileged television audience, hopefully.
Studying form then, what is the Jackie Stewart tip? Because you can sit back and watch this one.
I think that Hans Stuck will drive pretty hard. James Hunt won.
He'll spin out though.
Well, you see, George has become a real expert. He pulled out.
He'll go good, but he'll spin out. He'll lose it.
Well, you see, George picked the winner at Monaco just last week, so therefore we can listen to George Harrison today. But Mario will go quickly. Alan Jones will be fast.
Jones, maybe.
And John Watts.
Yeah. Out of the Grand Prix drivers, I'd say Alan Jones.
All right then, Alan Jones, Hans Stuck.
Hans Stuck.
Thank you very much, George Harrison, formerly the Beatles, and Jackie Stewart. Nice to see you back again. Well, that's it. We're going to take a short commercial break now, and then we'll be right back for the Gunnar Nilsson Memorial Trophy race with these spectacular cars over 30 laps. So stay with us. We'll be back in just a few moments from now. Welcome back to Donington, and that is James Hunt, just one of the famous Grand Prix drivers in this Gunnar Nilsson Memorial Trophy race. 30 laps for pro cars. Should be a very spectacular race. We're bringing it to you live, and I'm going to hand you over now to our race commentator, Andrew Marriott.
Well, thank you, Gary, and £600,000 worth of equipment on this grid, I worked out earlier on. Only the third ever BMW M1 Procar race. The first 2 accompanied Grand Prix. The first one at the Belgian Grand Prix just a month ago. 2 weeks ago we had a race at Monaco, I should say 1 week ago. And these cars lined up now for the first warming up lap. They'll do 1 lap of this 1.9-mile Donington track, come back onto the grid, wait just about 10 seconds, and then we should see the fun and the fury of pro car racing. And believe me, this is really exciting. These Grand Prix boys really enjoy driving these big sports cars, and I have to tell you that these cars have the same brake horsepower as a Grand Prix car, more or less, about 470 from their 3.5 litre fuel-injected engines. And there you see car number 77, Hans Stuck, Jackie Stewart's tip to win the race, and I have to say my tip to win the race. Stuck drove a real stormer in Monaco, came hurtling through the field after an early spin, and then had an enormous accident and crashed at the swimming pool section. And Hans Stuck been racing BMW since the start of his career. In fact, he drove around the Nürburgring German circuit when he was just 15 years old in a little BMW. Son of famous pre-war racing driver Hans Stuck Senior, who raced here at Donington back in the late 1930s. Hans Stuck is our favourite, very fiery driver, and their car number 60 right at the back, but the winner of the first pro car race in Zolder, that is Elio De Angelis, just 21 years old from Rome, driving for the Works Formula 1 Shadow team this year, but also has his own pro car, as you see, sponsored by the Italian wing of the German factory BMW. So Elio De Angelis on the back row of the grid, a man to watch, and the car's moving off now. Just listen to the roar of those cars. Delightful twin straight through exhaust pipes. Just 16 cars on the grid. Don't be confused, a lot of them look a little bit the same. 5 of these cars have come from the BMW factory. They're reserved for the top Grand Prix aces, the men who are driving them. Nelson Piquet of Brazil, John Watson of Ireland, Alan Jones of Australia, James Hunt and Mario Andretti. And here they are down the Craner curves, very tricky section, and then into the bit they call the old hairpin. It's a rather nasty right-hander which has caught people out in the past. Then they go towards Starkey's Bridge, that famous old bridge where in 1937-38, in those famous Donington Grand Prix, the great big rorty Mercedes-Benz and auto unions, well, they used to roar through the arches you see there, not around the bridge. And now they're through Coppice Wood and up towards the tricky McLean's corner, a very nasty right-hander. There they are, up into McLean's, and a full grandstand, I'm pleased to see. And then down towards the Coppice corner, the one where the museum rests just on the outside, and then the long straight down towards the Park chicane, a very tricky little area underneath the Dunlop Bridge, and then braking hard, and that's going to be the fastest section of the course. And I'm told by Hans Stuck, who I talked to just before the race, that he reckoned 155 miles an hour there or thereabouts. Cars swerving about a little bit, that's just to put plenty of heat into the tyres. They're running on Goodyear slicks. All these cars, the same specification, remember. This is BMW's answer to Ferrari, to Lamborghini, to Maserati. They'll be selling these cars at just £25,000 a piece, I'm told, and there's a 2-year waiting list if you want them. Engines revving, 30 laps, remember, of this 1.9 course, and engines building up. They're all watching the red lights. When they turn to green, they'll be off. Nelson Piquet and John Watson on the front row of the grid, and they're off. Piquet made a good start. Jones came through. My voice almost drowned out by the absolute roar of these big engines, and it looks very much to me. Oh, and somebody locking up a brake, but they all seem to be getting round safely. Dieter Quester in the green car out on the dirt, but he looks all right. The Austrian Dieter Quester, former European touring car champion. And it looks like Nelson Piquet. Difficult to spot these cars with their similar colour schemes, but Piquet seems to be leading. Mario Andretti, I saw there in third place, Mario Andretti, the current world champion. And that is number 6, Nelson Piquet, the 26-year-old Brazilian, in Grand Prix racing for the first time. And their car number 55, Manfred Winkelhock from Germany, coming through. Car number 27, but it's definitely Piquet in the lead as they come down towards this fastest section of the course. Nelson Piquet. Piquet will be in 5th gear now. He'll be knocking it down to take this chicane in 2nd gear. First Nelson Piquet, right behind him. Tucked in, it's Alan Jones, the Australian, in 2nd place. Alan Jones in 2nd place. So the Australian Alan Jones, currently the hot man in Grand Prix racing, is in 2nd place. Alan Jones, who races the Saudi Williams car. Jones led the Belgian Grand Prix. You may have seen it on World of Sport. Unfortunately, had an electrical problem. When he was walking away the race, Jones was lying 2nd and closing on 3rd and closing on the Ferraris at Monaco a week ago. Alan Jones, a man at the peak of his form, and not a man who's used to driving these sports cars, I have to tell you. Alan Jones' main career has been in single-seaters, apart from last year when he drove in the Can-Am Series and won the American Can-Am Series very convincingly. But just to go through the order, Piquet leading, Jones 2nd, in 3rd place, Bruno Gianelli. Looks as if Mario Andretti spun off. Yes, Mario Andretti has spun off on the 2nd lap, but he is regaining the course. So Piquet leads, Jones 2nd, Gianelli is 3rd, Juan Hezemans of Holland is 4th, John Watson's 5th, Winkelhock is in 6th position. Thank you, John Thompson, who's my lap charter today, and working hard to keep all these cars under control. And driving extremely well, Nelson Piquet, Brazilian, whose father was a top diplomat in Brazil. Nelson Piquet being challenged by Alan Jones. Piquet, who normally drives for Brabham. Alan Jones, who normally drives for Saudi Williams. And Alan Jones, as I said, the reigning Can-Am champion. Those sports cars, the Can-Am sports cars, really just 2-seater Grand Prix racing cars, but very, very different from these much heavier, proper GT BMWs who couldn't take a Can-Am car out on the road. You most certainly could take one of these cars out on the road. As I said, 470 brake horsepower, and the road cars will have a lot less than that, about 250. These have got all the racing tweaks and the high-lift cams. Fuel injections, I told you. Alan Jones looks to be shaping up to pass, going up now towards McLean's. No, there's no possibility there. Alan Jones sliding the tail out. Alan Jones really giving it his best in this. Now we're on the 3rd lap. And Hezemans has moved up 1 place and past Winkelhock. And Alan Jones maybe trying down the inside. No, he can't do it. So it's still Nelson Piquet in the lead. Alan Jones in 2nd place. Alan Jones, 32-year-old Australian from Melbourne originally, now commutes between Los Angeles and London. His very attractive blonde wife Beverly is here to watch, and just look at the way Alan Jones is soaring away at the steering wheel. Alan Jones, you might saw this working hard at the steering wheel. Probably have to work a damn sight harder driving one of these cars than a Grand Prix car. So this now lap 4 of this 30-lap race, and Alan Jones is off. Oh, look at that! Alan Jones lost control. He had been working really hard, slid wildly on the glass. He must be really angry with himself. He was really been pressing Nelson Piquet hard, and just lost control of it. I said earlier that he seemed to be working very hard, not quite hard enough, it would appear. So now in second place we have car number 70, Bruno Gianelli, the reigning European Formula 2 champion, a man who's raced at Donington and crashed here too. One of the few Formula 2 races he didn't win last year was here at Donington Park. And just look at the lead there that's been built up by Nelson Piquet. And here is the second man coming through. There you see the denim aftershave car of Bruno Gianelli, the one of 2 cars entered by BMW Italia. Bruno Gianelli, now the works Alfa Romeo Formula 1 driver. Alfa Romeo just come back into Grand Prix racing, and Bruno Gianelli is the man who's driving the car. It made its debut at Zolder. Didn't race at Monaco, where Bruno did drive in one of these Pro Car races, and very well indeed. This is the 3rd ever Pro Car race, but quite a surprise, I have to say, to see Nelson Piquet. Well, it would have seemed starting to walk away with this race. Nelson Piquet, outright lap record holder at Brands Hatch, set that record in the Race of Champions earlier this year. See that big BMW. The body originally designed by Ital Design in Italy. Originally Lamborghini were going to build these cars, but they ran into financial difficulty, so they now are built in Germany, indeed by an outfit called Bauer of Stuttgart, and they're putting these cars together for BMW. And the original plan, or the plan at the moment, is to build 400 for road use, and I said they're already sold and there's a waiting list of 2 years if you want to get hold of one of these cars, and you can see why. Just look at the way that car handles. The 2 blue and red, and the red stripe of BMW's well-known colours. Those of you who are high-performance buffs may know the saloon car BMW 635 CSI, and that's a very similar engine to the one that's in these cars. But we saw Bruno Gianelli hanging the tail out. Bruno Gianelli obviously trying everything he can to catch Nelson Piquet. Both men only recently graduated from Formula 3 racing, now both in Formula 1. Nelson Piquet, just a year ago, was a Formula 3 driver who was winning everything. Now he's the new star of Grand Prix racing, a rising star, and yet I have to say, to score his first World Championship point, Nelson Piquet, but I'm sure he's going to do so very soon. Piquet hanging the tail out, 26 years old, he comes from Brasilia, now lives in Walton in Surrey. Nelson Piquet, I noticed this morning in rather typical Brazilian style that he hadn't shaved for about 3 days, a lot of stubble on his chin. Brazilians do not appear to like shaving very much. Deep brown eyes as Nelson Piquet. I look straight into his face and he looks very much like the Brazilian world champion Emerson Fittipaldi. If anybody is going to become a new world champion from Brazil, this man, Nelson Piquet. Nelson Piquet around the McLean's corner. Nelson Piquet. Nelson was a protege of the another Brazilian driver, Alex Dias Ribeiro, the driver who always has Jesus Saves on his car. They were friends, raced together. In fact, Nelson worked in Alex's tuning shop, and well, you should know about rear-engine sports cars, Nelson, because he did drive Porsches a little bit in Brazil. He drove various Volkswagen Beetles. In fact, his career really started with Volkswagen Beetles. He then went into the Brazilian Super V Championship, Volkswagen-powered cars, and he was the star of that just back in 1975. In 1977, Nelson came over to England, to Europe, to find his fortune over here. did very well in European Formula 3 racing, finished third in the European Championship, and then last year he decided to base himself in Britain and won the BP Formula 3 Championship at a canter. And before the end of the season, he was being signed up by the BS Fabrications, and the Ensign Formula 1 teams gave him his first breaks in Grand Prix racing. But look at this battle, Mario Andretti closing up after that early mistake. And squeezing there, Mario Andretti just going past the car of Schultz, the former Renault R5 European champion. Yeah, fresh car. Mario Andretti enjoys this sort of racing. Remember, Mario Andretti is a great all-rounder. Sad news, though, that James Hunt has come into the pits. But Mario Andretti, a man who's won in Indianapolis, he's been American champion. But there is Piquet, the leader of this race. And this now is lap number 8. Nelson Piquet leading. Still in second place is Bruno Gianelli. And into third place we have Manfred Winkelhock. Going down towards the chicane. Right and then left Piquet, working away at the steering wheel. Puts the rear wheel up just against the curb. Perfect placing of this car. Second place, Bruno Gianelli. Third place, Manfred Winkelhock in the Vorsteiner car. In fourth place, Twan Hezemans. So the Grand Prix drivers, apart from Piquet, not giving a tremendous display. Tom Walkinshaw in his new car, just gone past me. But this is Nelson Piquet, very much the rising star of Grand Prix racing. In his first ever Pro Car race, Nelson didn't drive in Monaco in the Pro Car race. He was going to drive in the first race at Zolder, but his engine blew up on the warming up lap. Indeed, his engine blew up yesterday in practice, and he was very worried that the replacement engine would be competitive, but it seems that all these BMW 3.5 litre engines are the same, and he has no complaints today, I would say, about that. 3.5 litres, remember. We call this a mid-engine coupe. It's the engine in front of the rear axle. This category of racing, the brainchild of Jochen Neerpasch, the BMW competitions manager. He thought about it in 1975, and now this season it's happening. And there you have Bruno Gianelli, car number 70, European Formula 2 champion, the reigning champion of Formula 2, now in Formula 1, driving for the BMW Italia team. Bruno Gianelli, a hard worker. And John Watson's car just came into the pits. John Watson hit trouble. So that's John Watson and James Hunt, the two British Grand Prix hopes, both in the pits and seemingly out of this race. But here is Bruno Gianelli. John Watson was telling me earlier, these cars are a little heavy to drive. The steering, he says, is very, very nice, but you know you're in a big car. It's very different to a Grand Prix car. Of course, you've got a roof over your head. But, just notice there that one of the headlights has popped up on Piquet's car, and that might be knocking just a little bit of speed off the car. Nelson Piquet, there you see. We call him Nelson Piquet, the name he races under. Indeed, it's not his full name. Nelson's true name is Nelson Piquet Sotomayor. Sotomayor is his father's name. Piquet is his mother's name. They do this in Brazil, use both names. Sotomayor, he thinks, is a rather difficult name to say, and so he's dropped that, and he's always raced under the name of Nelson Piquet. Hans Stuck storming through the field. Hans Stuck, who Jackie Stewart and myself picked out as the possible winner, right up into fourth place from the fourth row of the grid. Hans Stuck in car number 77. So we'll have to watch for Hans Stuck. That there is Manfred Winkelhock in car 55, but he'll soon be looking in his rear mirrors for Hans Stuck, and there is Hans Stuck. Hans Stuck in the black and white car. There's Winkelhock. That is Winkelhock in the Vorsteiner beer car. The sponsor, who of course also sponsors the Arrows Formula 1 team. But chasing him hard, Hans Stuck, 28-year-old lanky German from Greinau. And here is Hans Stuck. Remember, he had that big accident, in fact, in Monaco. He had an accident in Zolder when he was dicing for he desperately wants to lead one of these pro car races. A man who's been with BMW all his racing career. He really does love these BMW. And look at him just sliding the tail out, smoke coming off the tyres. Hans Stuck giving it everything he's got. So here we have Winkelhock coming through the chicane. That's Bruno Gianelli, I think. No, that's Nelson Piquet, of course, the leader. Nelson Piquet in the lead, with the one headlight popped up. Piquet in the BMW. Then we've got Gianelli. Tom Walkinshaw's car just went past me, misfiring. In third place, we still have car number 55, Winkelhock. And then in fourth place now, car number 77, Hans Stuck. There's Winkelhock third, and yes, let's wait and see. Yes, there is Hans Stuck. Hans Stuck, son of the great pre-war driver, and he's using all the road a little bit more. Almost lost control of the car, but you know, he's still going. Alan Jones now out of the picture. John Watson back in the race after that pit stop. There's Winkelhock third. There, car number 77, the black and white car of Hans Stuck, again kicking up the dust. Hans Stuck, a real hard trier. Drives for the Midlands-based but German-financed ATS team in Grand Prix racing. Has never won a Grand Prix, Hans Stuck, but finished twice third in the 1977 season when he drove for Brabham. And last year he drove for Shadow, and now he's driving for ATS and starting to get the ATS car working very well. But Hans Stuck, superb in these sort of cars, superb in BMW saloons, just puts the car up on the curve, back down again. This car hurriedly rebuilt after its Monaco crash, where it flattened the Armco barrier, the swimming pool section. Looked a total write-off. The mechanics worked through the night to get the car ready. It finally turned a wheel for the first time again here yesterday. Hans Stuck pressing hard, starting to close up, I would think, on Manfred Winkelhock. Manfred Winkelhock, a man with single-seater experience, but this year driving a BMW in saloon car racing in the very popular and lucrative German series. There's Hans Stuck flashing past Starkey's Bridge. And that's Twan Hazemans behind. Twan Hazemans, the Dutch diamond dealer. Twan been racing now for 15 years or so, deals in diamonds, also an expert flyer. But there is Hans Stuck, bouncing it off the curve, hangs the tail out, gives it full throttle. Fourth gear, he told me, just about there. He talked me around this circuit, Hans Stuck, yesterday. Taking fifth gear there, about 155 miles an hour, just about now. The camera foreshortens a little bit, crams on the brakes, down the gearbox, fourth, third, a lot of smoke coming out of the back. Takes that park chicane in second, accelerates hard up to about 8,500 rev. Takes third gear briefly, pops it back down into second gear as he comes into the Redgate corner. Into Redgate corner with Hans Stuck, but here is the leader coming through the Craner curve. Nelson Piquet still leading. Piquet in the lead. Remember, still Bruno Gianelli, third Winkelhock, and in fourth place still Hans Stuck, but trying hard. In fifth place is car number 99, Twan Hazemans. That is Gianelli. That is Winkelhock, as close as that, and just caught a flash of Hans Stuck. Second and third men very close indeed. So the leader is still Nelson Piquet, the Brazilian, brilliant Brazilian, 26 years old. He goes into the chicane, right, and then left. Pause on the power. Nelson Piquet, who's also will be driving today in a special demonstration, the Brabham fan car, which won last year's Swedish Grand Prix. When that car won the Swedish Grand Prix a year ago, Nelson was still in Formula 3 racing. Niki Lauda won the race, of course, then. But now Nelson Piquet is going to be able to give the car a run here today. In fact, the car had some trouble in practice. In fact, the fan bearings, I gather, gave trouble. But here we see the second, third and fourth places. No, that's not second man, that's Conrad, car number 88, Conrad, about to be overtaken by John Watson after his pit stop, about to be overtaken by Mario Andretti after his spin-off. Mario Andretti, car number 1, taking the inside line into Redgate. Doesn't make it. Yes, he does make it, so it's Andretti and Watson, two Grand Prix drivers, and Watson hanging the tail out. Both have hit trouble. Watson had spun off. Mario Andretti had hit trouble. They're down in 13th and 14th places, but working hard to get back up the field. And there is the leader, Nelson Piquet, in car number 6. These cars identical looking and identical power, identical chassis. Drivers are allowed to experiment a little bit with springs, but that's about the only difference between all of them. Nelson Piquet fairly handily in the lead. This is lap 16, so we've just passed the halfway mark. And very close battle there between Andretti and Watson. Watson really trying hard to get past Mauro Andretti. Andretti had spun off. John Watson had been in the pits briefly, but both going strongly again now as they roar down into the chicane, down the gearbox. John Watson from Belfast, originally from Belfast, now lives in Bognor Regis. So often unlucky, led so many Grand Prix, but only ever won one, that 1976 Grand Prix when he drove for Roger Penske. Now the McLaren team leader against car number 1, Mauro Andretti, the Lotus team leader, and John Watson really working hard, see if he can get that 13th place. All these drivers, remember, giving the proceeds, or racing for free indeed, proceeds going to the Gunnar Nilsson cancer treatment campaign. All the marshals giving all their expense money to the campaign too, the great band of marshals here at Donington who work so hard. But the order at half distance, so let's just go through it. First, Piquet, as you know. Second, Giacomelli. Third, Winkelhock. Fourth is Hans Stuck. Fifth, Juan Hesselman. Sixth, Helmut Kelleners. Seventh, Dieter Quester. Eighth, Walkinshaw. Ninth, David Hobbs, a Midland man. And 10th, Elio De Angelis. And now for Watson and Andretti, the long straight in front of them. This is lap number 17. And it looked to me as if Watson was thinking of shaping up to pass, but he can't do it. Mauro Andretti, 39 years old, has driven everything, has driven in Can-Am races, has driven in long-distance sports car races, won big races like Sebring and Daytona, would like to win Le Mans. And there is Piquet, much younger career, Nelson Piquet, but a superb talent to come out of Brazil. His father wanted him to be a great tennis star. Piquet preferred motor racing. In fact, Nelson went to school to high school in San Francisco to learn all about tennis. He played a lot of tennis and did a little bit of studying. His English is indeed very good. And Nelson Piquet disappointed his father, his late father, and switched to car racing instead of tennis. And now Hans Stuck right on the tail of Winkelhock. Hans Stuck really challenging hard for third place. Just inches behind Winkelhock now. Here we see Piquet trying to find a way past Schutz. Schutz only before this season driven in little Renault R5 races. Not surprising, he's going to be lapped. And that there looked like Alan Jones. And there Piquet still trying to find a way. Piquet trying to find a way past Schutz. See how Schutz, the lesser experienced driver, brake before Piquet, and holding him up a little bit. Can he get round? No, he's going to take the inside and accelerating out of that corner, overtakes and laps Schutz, the German driver. And John Watson has indeed got ahead of Andretti, I hear. First man, Nelson Piquet, having an untroubled run. James Hunt back in the race. Hans Stuck now still chasing Hans Stuck, still chasing his rival Winkelhock. Giacomelli is still second. The cars all mixed up now as cars lap each other. No doubt about the leader though, Nelson Piquet in that beautiful M1 BMW Procar. BMW are taking a rather different M1 to Le Mans next week. That'll be a specially built car with a rather different chassis, a much lighter chassis than this car. This chassis is built out of the tubular steel and sheet, and the Le Mans car, which will be driven by Guy Edwards, Ian Grob and Dieter Quester, is a much lighter version. So BMW building special cars for Le Mans, but these cars are much more similar to the road M1s that you will be able to afford if you can wait 2 years and have got £25,000 to spare. 1.9-mile Donington circuit. A fine tribute to Tom Wheatcroft's enthusiasm for racing. One day he hopes to have a Grand Prix, the British Grand Prix, at this track. At the moment, he has to be content to have top-line Grand Prix drivers racing here. Nelson Piquet knows the circuit well. He's raced here in Formula 3, remember. So Nelson Piquet knows all about this track. The tricky trainer curves. Very difficult spot that, and there is Bruno Gianelli in second place. He's got to lap some slower cars. Bruno Gianelli, short, stocky Italian, comes from Brescia, famous name in motor racing, where the Mille Miglia, of course, was based. Bruno Gianelli, the farmer's son. Battled his way up into Formula 3 racing, came over to Britain, made his name in British Formula 3 racing, switched to Formula 2 racing, totally dominated last year's season, and he can certainly drive an M1 Pro car into the bargain. Turns right into this tricky chicane where so often there's outbraking manoeuvres. A black and white car. You just caught a glimpse of Bruno's orange crash helmet with the diamonds around it, easy to spot. Last year, Bruno drove for McLaren in a third car, along with James Hunt for a while. Bruno Gianelli now the Works Alfa Romeo driver. Bruno yet to really make his mark in Grand Prix racing. Puff of smoke there from Nelson Piquet's car. Nelson Piquet in the lead. There have been teething troubles with these M1 racing coupes. So the first race in Zolder, a lot of them threw off their crankshaft dampers, and Alan Jones just came into the pits below me, and I suggest that's what might have happened to him. Of course, you've got a lot of car to stop, so brakes take a pasting too, and we may see as this race goes into its final stages that people are having brake trouble. This is lap 21, just 9 laps to go now. And very firmly in the lead, Nelson Piquet, Elio De Angelis, who'd won the first Pro Car race back at Zolder, not really figuring. Nelson Piquet in the lead, remember. Just crossing the line in second place, Bruno Gianelli. In third and fourth places, it's still car number 55, Winkelhoff, still chased by Hans Stuck 77. So it looks if Jackie Stewart's prediction, my prediction, that Stuck was going to storm through and take this race, well, it looks as if we have defaulted on that one. Nelson Piquet surprised everybody. Off the front row of the grid, Nelson Piquet just puts the wheel on the curb. Beautiful handling of this car. Nelson Piquet just watches the tail flicks out, holds it against the steering wheel. Up towards the grandstand there, McLean's corner. Sliding it through McLean's, just a little angular slip. Through Coppice and then down that long straight. Remember, touching perhaps 155 miles an hour. These cars on a long straight, a longer straight than this one, will perhaps reach 180, but 155 could be top whack here, maybe a little less. Nelson Piquet now has the problem of having to lap some of the slower men. He's got a couple in his sight at this time. Past the pits. There is car number 20, and that's James Hunt. James Hunt has been in the pits. James Hunt, who is actually lying in 16th and last place after the pit stop, going a bit stronger now. Let's see if James Hunt can now hold off Nelson Piquet. James Hunt, one of the men, we have to say, in the twilight of his Grand Prix career. He's giving up at the end of the year, and behind him, but a lap in front, one of the great rising stars. I predict a future world champion, Nelson Piquet Sotomayor, as his full name is. The man from Brasilia, dark, swarthy Brazilian. See the brake lights come on, that headlight still popped up, and I would have thought that would have knocked just a little bit of speed off the car along the main straight. James Hunt a lap behind Nelson Piquet. Hunt into the chicane. Piquet into the chicane. There you see them from the pits. The rear aerofoil on the back to help hold the back of the car down. As I said, next week the Le Mans 24-hour race will be taking place, and starting 2 hours earlier this year because of the European elections. And there will be, as well as the very special March Engineering BMW M1, the lightweight one, there will be some of these more standard cars in the race, a couple of them as well. And we suspect they may give the Porsches quite a good run for their money. This is BMW's idea, to give Porsche a really good run for their money in this Group 5, Group 4 category. Just listen to that glorious engine, a big straight 6 engine, fuel injected, 3.5 litres, remember, developed by BMW engineers over a period of time. BMW engines very successful also in Formula 2 racing, the 2-litre engines, and of course Giacomelli used such an engine to win last year's European Formula 2 Championship. And here's the battle for 3rd place. Here's Hans Stuck trying to find a way around Manfred Winkelhock. Manfred Winkelhock, Formula 2 driver last year, concentrating on saloons for BMW this year. Hans Stuck, Grand Prix racing ace. Lanky man, 28 years old. The old car of Winkelhock, a black and white car. The Stuck hurriedly rebuilt, remember, after the Monaco accident. And I'm a little surprised, I have to say, that Manfred has held off Hans. Manfred Winkelhock, 27 years old. He tells me that he's a motoring engineer. He has a degree in engineering, automobile engineering, and worked in that before he became a full-time racing driver. Hans Stuck has never done anything in his life apart from being a schoolboy, other than drive racing cars. And really trying everything he knows to get past Winkelhock, taking a tighter line there through the Coppice corner, and now trying down the outside, see if he can get past Winkelhock. The car seems wheel to wheel at 155 miles an hour. Just look at that, and can he outbrake Winkelhock into the chicane? No, he can't. Tries around the outside, doesn't do it. Winkelhock still holds on to 3rd place. Right up his twin exhaust pipes there. And will he try into Redgate? No, he won't. Tries around the outside. There's no way he can get past there. Tucking in for a fast exit. Twin apex corner that is Redgate. Now down the Craner Sweeps. Craner Sweeps named after Fred Craner, the man who did so much at Donington. And he locks a wheel and almost loses control. You just saw the puff of smoke come up from that front tyre. The back end came out and he just managed to hold it. Hans Stuck really giving it everything. What a battle this is. Piquet may be walking away with the race, but Hans Stuck giving it everything to try and get into 3rd place. Just look at his hands working away at the steering wheel. Trying this way, trying that way. To put on the brakes at almost the same instant. Trying down the inside. Will he get him down the straight this time? There he is. And do they touch? No, not quite. Winkelhock comes across in front of him, chops him up. Winkelhock knows a trick or two, that's for certain. Winkelhock versus Stuck. Stuck goes for the outside. No, he can't get by into chicane. Locks up all his brakes. Slides wide, just scrabbles round. Hans Stuck trying absolutely everything. And probably lost about a second in that manoeuvre. Very, very nearly went off. Right on the edges, Hans Stuck. So Hans Stuck dropped back a little bit after that desperate manoeuvre at the chicane. So it's still Manfred Winkelhock in 2nd place. Nelson Piquet is the man that he would like to catch, but can't. Car number 6, BMW M1. Here he is, you can recognise that car with its one eye open. Nelson Piquet, number 2 to Niki Lauda these days in the Brabham Alfa Romeo team. Little flames coming out of the exhaust of one of the back markers. Nelson Piquet has got 2 back markers to find a way past. One looks like Conrad Yes, one indeed is Conrad, the ex-Austrian motocross champion. Piquet goes past Conrad. Does not go past, I think that was James Hunt. We'll just have to check it out. Yes, indeed, James Hunt holding off Nelson Piquet. Franz Conrad, the former motocross ace, F3 driver. Well lapped, not one of the stars of M1 racing, I have to say. Nelson Piquet very definitely is. Remember, most of these M1 races supporting Grand Prix, the next one scheduled to be at the Dijon track in the French Grand Prix. There's a little bit of politics going on about that. But then we will definitely see these cars again in Britain at the Marlborough British Grand Prix at Silverstone. And off goes James Hunt, off into the sand, just pushed into the barrier a little bit, not much damage done. And James Hunt is having the most diabolical season, hasn't scored a single World Championship point so far with Wolf, and he can't even hang on to a BMW M1. So James Hunt we're seeing going off the track, trying not to be lapped by Nelson Piquet. Bruno Gianelli appears to slip down the field. There you see now James Hunt with one of the latest Simpson crash helmets, look like something out of Star Wars. James doesn't seem too perturbed, however. Winkelhock, fourth, right behind him is Stuck. Fifth place Hazelin, sixth place Kelleners, and Dieter Quester followed Kelleners home. Grand Prix drivers apart from Piquet, a little disappointing. Giacomelli driving his own car, second, but of course a Grand Prix driver. So Nelson Piquet now driving around on his slowing down lap. He has more work to do this afternoon, gets his windscreen wiper going, but I don't believe there's any rain. He's probably just knocked the switch. So Nelson Piquet slowing down. All the marshals wave, and they wave to Hans Stuck, who put up such a brave performance to try and get past Winkelhock. That was the moment in the race for me when Stuck tried to barge past Winkelhock on the last at that chicane. Didn't quite make it. Andretti just takes the flag, but Gunnar Nilsson race, won by Nelson Piquet from Bruno Giacomelli and Manfred Winkelhock. Well, Gary Newbon is on the victory rostrum now with Nelson Piquet, the winner. Nelson just about to receive the spoils of victory, the garland, the cup from Prince Bertil of Sweden. So now over to Gary Newbon.
Well, welcome back. Prince Bertil of Sweden is now going to make the presentation to Nelson Piquet, who won that race.
I don't want to know.
You can pour some over me. I never object to that. Well, I'll hold that for you, Nelson. Nelson, I'll just make the champagne first of all. I think we might have to pause for a moment to wipe the camera after that. Well, we're going to look at you through champagne lenses, because that was a champagne race for you, Nelson. Led from the start.
Yeah. I think very easy in the start because the problem was the tires. If you go very hard in the beginning, we finish the tire for the end. And they keep very easy the car and the finish well.
Alan Jones looked as if he was going to challenge you there at the beginning. What happened? Did you see it?
No, I didn't see.
I think he spun off actually. Did you feel there were any other challenges coming towards you?
No.
Good, comfortable race. What are these pro car races like?
It's a very good car. It's a very big engine. It's a very heavy car. It's do more or less the same time in Formula 3, but much quicker in the straight and slow in the corners. It's very good for drive and very competitive car. You know, the car is very close.
You have to work very hard up.
In compare with Formula 1, not really. You have to drive smooth. You can, and you have more power than how say handling.
What's it like beating all those Grand Prix drivers?
Yeah, I'm learning this year. It's my first year in the Formula 1, and I did few races last year. But
anyway, great day really for all the drivers to come here and help Gunnar's appeal.
Oh, that's very good. I'm very impressed with this in England, and everyone came from very far away to do this for Gunnar and for the council.
Nelson, thank you very much. Here's your cup back. Well done.
Well, there we saw Nelson Piquet, the young Brazilian, getting his spoils of victory. He just walks now towards me with a beautiful garland around his neck, with a very nice cup, and he's going to do a tour of honour around the circuit on a Austin Princess. He climbs up there on the back of it. Plenty of sponsors on the back of him, mainly Brazilian, in fact. He takes the cup in his hand. I once remember at a Formula 3 race, the last, I think, Formula 3 race that Gunnar Nilsson ever won. Very, very happy on the grid, Gunnar. And he actually took the top of the cup and put it on his head for photographers, and that was the way Gunnar was. He was a great man for clowning around. But Nelson Piquet, as I said, a man who I think is going to go a very, very long way in Grand Prix racing, now driving for the Brabham Alpha team. The cars this year have flat 12 engines. Sorry, I say flat 12 engines. They started the season with flat 12 engines. They now have V12 engines developed specially by Alfa Romeo. And there you see on the grid, very interesting thing. That is the man who dreamed up this M1 series, Jochen Neerpasch, the competitions manager of BMW, formerly with Ford, formerly a top-class sports car driver with Porsche. So we have now Jochen Neerpasch, the man whose brainchild this M1 racing was, with Nelson Piquet, the winner of this race. He led every one of those 30 laps without any problem. We saw other people spin off, remember. We saw Alan Jones challenge Piquet. The only man that really challenged Piquet, Alan Jones, spun off. And after that, Bruno Gianelli took second place and hung on to it for the rest of the race. Most excitement in the race, of course, of that tremendous battle there we had for third place. But there, Nelson Piquet waves the cup, waves the hat with Jochen Neerpasch. Jochen Neerpasch must be very pleased about this Procar series. He dreamed it up just about 5 years ago. But what a coup it was for Neerpasch to get these races, onto the same program as Grand Prix. As I said, there will be a Procar race at the British Grand Prix in July, and that's definitely a meeting to look forward to. And that's a meeting, I feel, where Nelson Piquet could really find his form. Nelson had a storming drive, I have to say, just a week ago in Monaco. Looked as if he was going to come up to third place, and then Nelson, right at the end, had trouble. He had trouble in the pits very early on in the race at Monaco, then came roaring up through the field. It was definitely one of the drives of the race, but Piquet's got all the speed indeed. So we see Nelson Piquet going round the track, and let's hand back to Gary Newbon.
Well, with me I've got Tom Wheatcroft. Thank you, by the way, Andrew Marriott, our commentator this afternoon. With me I've got Tom Wheatcroft, whose track this is, of course. £2.5 million you spent on this dream. So what do you think of this great day with all these big names here?
Well, that's really what I've been looking forward for probably 3 years, to get these big names here. But what was so marvellous is the amount of work Jackie Stewart's done for us for all this to happen. Probably a record crowd. And then have Manuel Fangio come all the way from Argentina just for today. It's just fantastic. And there's probably, 6 world champions here today. Fantastic, that is.
You enjoy the race?
Oh, yes, very much indeed, very much. And also I enjoyed the historic run too.
What are you going to do here now? Are you going to get us a British Grand Prix here in the Midlands?
Well, that's a very difficult thing to say, but my ambition now is to get the White Grand Prix here and the British Motor Racing Grand Prix here for the cars, and we've got everything then.
A lot of people must have thought you were mad spending all this money on this place, but how do you see it?
Well, probably I am mad to spend that amount of money, but marvellous for the sport and centre of the country. We need a first-class Grand Prix circuit in this country, and I'm doing all I know how to do it.
You mentioned Fangio just now. We will at a later date be showing the viewers the run that Fangio did. He does seem to electrify the place, doesn't he?
Oh, everyone's, well, he can't move. There's autographs everywhere. Everybody wants autographs off him. It's just, he can't move at all. He's just out of this world, probably greatest of all times.
What about the response for Gunnar Nilsson's appeal as well today?
Well, I think that's going to be absolutely magnificent. In my last 200 yards of walking, I've had 17 different cheques given me, from probably £5 up to £10 to put into the fund. It's just unbelievable. And his mother's here today. It must be marvellous for her to see what everyone's doing.
I think as well, it's great as well, Tom, the way that the top stars rally around when they saw that one of their number who was dying was so dedicated on a course.
Oh, yes. I mean, you couldn't keep Mario Andretti from coming or anyone like that. I mean, Formula One Association have brought all these cars, the fan car, everything. It's all here. It's magnificent, really. They've all rallied round to do everything that's ever possible.
Well, it certainly put Donington on the map today. Final word, are you going to make more improvements here now?
Oh, yes. We've never stopped making improvements.